right, so it is the final week of the 2025 NBA regular season. It's kind of sad that the regular season is over, but I'm so excited for the playoffs. And before that, I want to give you guys my final 30-team ranking for the 2025 season. So there's a couple different factors that could go into this, and I'll explain those for their team rankings when we get there. But it's pretty much how I think you would do in like a 7-game series against any team right now. And if you agree or disagree, like always, please let me know why down below and give me maybe your rankings down there as well. And if you guys do enjoy the video, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let's get into it. So we're going to kick things off with the Utah Jazz. Pretty much over the last 15 games, they've been by far the worst team in the NBA, and they're finally bottoming out for a top prospect in the draft. We didn't see them do that in 2023 or in 2024, but they are finally the worst team in the NBA at the current moment. They are 16-63 the moment I'm recording this video, dead last in the NBA, dead last in defensive rating. And I will say there's still a glimmer of hope for this team, especially if they're able to get Cooper Flagg in the lottery. And I like what I saw from some of their rookies like Kyle Filipowski and Isaiah Collier. Maybe not as much for Cody Williams this year. It did feel like Lauri Markkanen took a step back, but Walker Kessler's defense, in my opinion, took a step forward. If they do get Cooper Flagg, I do think this could be a fringe playing tournament team next year because they do have a decent amount of quantity of young talent on their team. And for guys like Cody Williams, it can only go up from here. But yeah, this has definitely been the worst year for the Jazz. And I feel like they're okay with that because they didn't really bottom out over the last 2 years and they didn't get a top end prospect to go with that. But coming in at number 29, they're actually not the worst team in the Eastern Conference or the second worst team in the Eastern Conference, but I don't care. This is a really bad team right now. And it's also been due to injuries here in 2025. I'm going with the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, man, it's just not been a fun year for the Charlotte Hornets. I thought they could have been a playing tournament team this year. Yeah, I was very high on the Hornets going into this year, but then Brandon Miller got hurt, Grant Williams got hurt, Trey Mann got hurt. Basically, everybody got hurt. Mark Williams was hurt to start off the year, and LaMelo Ball, yet again, did not play over 50 games for the third straight season. I will say none of their young players outside of Mark Williams really improved this year, as Nick Smith Jr. really didn't take advantage of his increase of playing time. Neither did Tijan Salan, who looks like he's still a couple years away and was maybe a bigger project than we assumed coming out of Charlotte. So yeah, it's just another terrible year for the Charlotte Hornets. Like the Utah Jazz, they're hoping they could just get Cooper Flagg. That could turn their franchise around. But if this team drops from like 3 to 6 in the lottery and they're going to end up with like a B tier prospect for this season yet again, you just got to feel bad for the Hornets fans out there. Coming in at number 28 though, they were the worst team for most of this season, but they've come alive a little bit as of late. I really love their trade deadline, the Washington Wizards. Now don't get me wrong, the Wizards are still a really bad team. They're a bottom 3 team defensively. They are the worst offensive team in the NBA, but they've been more exciting to watch over the last few weeks and in the month of March because guys like Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George have had more playing time. I'd rather watch Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton actually care out there than Kyle Kuzma, who was one of their top veterans before that. I love they took a flyer on AJ Johnson. And I think guys like Corey Kispert, Tristan Vukcevic, and Justin Champagnie still play hard as well. And I'm excited about the Wizards' future. And I could just imagine how much fun this defensive front court would be with Cooper Flagg and Alex Sarr complementing each other. I do hope the Wizards get Cooper Flagg, but I'm cool with Cooper Flagg on any team, maybe just not Philly. So coming in at number 27, I do have the Philadelphia 76ers. They're probably the biggest team drop-off and discrepancy from your preseason rankings, where I had Philly as a top 10 team in the league, and they're finishing as a bottom 5 team. They're currently 25th in net rating, 22nd in offensive rating, 26th in defensive rating. Teams don't openly say they're tanking, but the 76ers have been tanking for a while. There's some names out there that I haven't heard in so long that are currently playing for them. You got Alex Reese, you got Colin Castleton, Jalen Hood-Schifino was getting minutes for them. How about Marcus Bagley as well? Or Pete Nance, David Roddy, Phil Wheeler. You ever hear of him before the year? Yeah, the 76ers have been playing a bunch of guys this year, 29 different players in the year 2025 because of Paul George being hurt, Maxey, Embiid, them shutting everybody down. Now Gershon, Jared McCain, Justin Edwards, and Quentin Grimes are all bright spots about this team going forward, and there's a good chance they're going to keep their pick. And this team can still be scary on paper next year if they land a Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, or Cooper Flagg around Embiid, Paul George, Maxey, McCain, and what Quentin Grimes is giving you. Yeah, the 76ers could probably have the biggest jump in wins from the 2025 season to the 2026 season, but that's not really a surprise, given that they should be healthy next year. Coming in at 26, another team that's had a major win discrepancy from their preseason expectations due to injury in the year 2025, the New Orleans Pelicans. As the Pelicans have been one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA all year long, and due to injuries, they've been one of the worst offensive teams as well. I do wonder if Willie Green is going to be the head coach of this team next season. And it's a shame how many injuries the Pelicans had. They were basically the 2024 Memphis Grizzlies, as Brandon Ingram only played 18 games for them before getting traded. DeJounte Murray played 31 games. He started off the year hurt after game 1. 21, and then unfortunately tore his Achilles 30 games later. Herb Jones only played 20 games. Zion only played 30 games. Jordan Hawkins only played 56 games. This team was insanely banged up. Even Trey Murphy only played 53 games and was their best player for most of the year. But this team is still in a fine position. They got loads of talent right now. When Zion is out there, he can look like a top 10 player in the league. Trey Murphy showed great 3-level scoring off of that new contract. And CJ McCollum is still a good veteran. They got some good young talent. The lottery luck goes their way. They could be a scary team in 2025. But a lot of ifs there. This team is coming in at number 25. Honestly, I think it's disappointing that they aren't lower. The Brooklyn Nets. You tore down this roster. You traded away Mikal Bridges. You ended up trading away Dorian Finney-Smith and Dennis Schroeder. And you were trying to bottom out in the NBA to get a premier prospect. Now, the lottery gods could reward the Brooklyn Nets for an ethical tank this year, but you're not really giving yourself the best probability favor with winning over 25 games this year. They're currently 12th in the Eastern Conference. They're going to finish around the 6th best odds. There's a chance they could fall to 7 or 8, and you're going to get a B or a second-tier prospect in the draft for how bad you were this year. It's not where you want to go. We saw how the Utah Jazz operated in 23 and 24, and maybe they regret that. So I do think the Nets won too many games this year, which is, I guess, going to be okay. You know what? You're at least going to go out there and compete every night. Jordy Fernandez looks like he could be the franchise coach of this team, but they don't have the best young core in the world. They didn't have a 2024 first-round pick. I would just have liked this team a little bit better if they traded away Cam Johnson, maybe Nick Claxton. They got a couple more assets, and they could at least guarantee themselves a top 5 pick because they were a lot better than Utah, Charlotte, New Orleans, and Washington this year. Coming in at number 24, they have been playing some better basketball as of late. I got the Toronto Raptors. Now, I had the Raptors under 29.5 wins this year, and that's going to be something that's sweating towards the end of it, and they're going to finish right around 29, 30 wins this year. It was an up and down year for the Raptors. I think Darko Rajakovic did a very good job with all the injuries they had. And maybe they're another team that maybe should have lost a couple more games to improve their lottery luck, but they were a very good defensive team this year, led by some of their rookies, Jamal Shed and Jonathan Mogbo. Jacoby Walter on the offensive end has looked encouraging over his last 30 games, especially from downtown. And basically everybody was hurt on this team. Brandon Ingram hasn't played a single game. Pirtle missed some time. Quickly, Barrett, Scotty, all these guys missed some time. And I do think they have a good young core in this league. Now, I don't know if they're going to have a number 1 option on a championship team on their current squad right now, but I do think they have the assets in place. They bought low in Ochai Agbaji. That really worked out. And same with Davion Mitchell. They were able to flip him for some assets. I know Grady Dick didn't have the best second half in the world after that really hot start, but he could be an elite 3-point shooter, complimentary piece in this league. I think the Raptors are going to be better next year. I think they could definitely be in the play-in tournament, maybe even better than that, but it really depends on how their 2025 offseason goes. Coming in at number 23, a team that was flirting with the play-in tournament for most of the year before their top player went down with the blood clot. I do have the San Antonio Spurs, and they were a team I was a little bit lower on going into the year, but they were winning a lot of games. Chris Paul looked great for them. Wemby obviously looked like a top 10 player in the league, and they went out and they made a win now move this year, but more so for the long term, and they acquired De'Aaron Fox, one of the best point guards in the NBA from the Sacramento Kings, and I don't think they paid full dollar value for him. I thought they got him at a discount for sure. The Spurs looked like a top 20 offensive team for most of the year, but once Wemby went down there, like, De'Aaron Fox, you know what, you can have your finger surgery and let's just get fully healthy for the 2026 season. I would say their young core didn't improve as much as I would have liked it to. Now, Stephon Castle was one of the best, if not the best rookie this year. Devin Vassell has shown flashes as of late, but maybe Jeremy Shohan, Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham haven't taken the steps that you would have liked them to. But this team is in a fantastic spot. Like I said, they got De'Aaron Fox at a discount. They had the best rookie or one of the best this year. It's Stephon Castle, and they're going to have somebody that could maybe win the MVP in 2026 in Victor Wembanyama. I know they've been a fun storyline as of late, and hey, maybe they can win a couple games and actually make the playoffs. I do have the Chicago Bulls. I do think the Chicago Bulls have been a fun storyline as of late with Kobe White, Matas Buzelis, Trey Jones, and Josh Giddey all improving their stock throughout the year. It's just, is this team winning too many games? Yet again, they traded Zach LaVine, and the only asset they really got back that was a good one was having their pick now become unprotected back to themselves so they can get their first round pick in 2026 from San Antonio, because this would have been a disaster if they didn't pull that off, because they would have been too good this year to keep their first round pick the way that they're playing right now. But they've been a really fun offensive team. It's just they're going to end up in the play-in tournament yet again. It's where the Bulls have been with or without Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. I know you never want to bottom out, and maybe they get rewarded by the lottery gods like the Atlanta Hawks got rewarded last year. It's just the odds are not going to be in their favor, but at least Buzelis looks like an exciting young rookie, and Josh Giddey looks like he's definitely done a 180 on his value across the league. Coming in at number 21, I do have the Miami Heat. They're most likely going to finish 10th in the Eastern Conference this year. They looked horrible after the Jimmy Butler trade, but they've been playing a little bit better of basketball as of late. I think Bam has had a very strong second half. that I feel like should have been talked about a little bit more. Pele Larson looks like another second round late find by this Miami Heat front office. Davion Mitchell looks like a good pickup. And then playing decent basketball with no Jimmy Butler, with Terry Rozier basically being a negative asset at this point. Kel'el Ware does look like a top 5 rookie. I would put him on all rookie first team this year. And I think they're just a team that maybe could win a couple play-in tournament games and then just get swept by the Cleveland Cavaliers in round number 1. And then they're going to have big decisions to make in the offseason. I would say some of the other guys, like Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jaquez, didn't really take the steps that I would have liked them to this year. Another massive drop-off this year. Man, not making the play-in tournament most likely is such a disappointment, and that is the Phoenix Suns coming in here at number 20. They're almost 10 games under 500. They're actually a respectable team when Kevin Durant plays, but they can't win a single game when Kevin Durant isn't out there, and it's because of their lack of depth, their lack of defense. They are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, and they're a top 10 offensive team, and they're this bad because they can't defend whatsoever. I think Ryan Dunn has done all he could as a rookie, being one of the best defenders in that 2024 draft class, but Bradley Beal's defense hasn't been consistent all year long. He only played 51 games, and he's making $50 million a year. Devin Booker still got his numbers this year. His three-point shot was a little bit down. Kevin Durant was still elite at the age of 36, but it's just you're not getting much defense out of Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones. In the beginning of the year, Yusuf Nurkic, who was one of the worst defensive big men in the NBA. I'm not really sure where this team goes in the offseason, but I feel like if I had to take a guess, they're going to trade away Kevin Durant. And I honestly think my number 19 team would beat them in a 7-game playoff series. One of my favorite teams to watch this year, the Portland Trailblazers. I got Trailblazers fever. I think they could be at least a play-in tournament team in the year 2026. They're currently around 10 games under 500, but I'd rather be this team 10 games under 500 than what the Phoenix Suns are. They're around league average defensively. They're creeping up there offensively, but still a bottom 10 team on that end of the floor. But Denny Avdia has taken strides this year as a true playmaker for this team. Shaedon Sharpe has shown some flashes and looked as healthy as he has since his rookie year. Scoot Henderson took some strides this year, and Toumani Camara has turned into one of the best defensive players in the NBA and could end up on an all-defensive team after just being a throw-in in the DeAndre Ayton, Yusuf Nurkic portion of the Damian Lillard trade. I love what Donovan Clingan showed as a rookie. Hope he can turn down the fouls next year and just get more playing time and up the minutes. But I would say this is one of the more exciting young cores, and I can't imagine if they get some lottery luck and they get Cooper Flagg, man, Portland basketball will be back. Coming in at number 18, if they were at full strength, I honestly think this could be a championship level roster. I know, I'm going to side with Nico Harrison there, right? I do have the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, if Kyrie never got hurt and Anthony Davis never got hurt for them, I do think they could have made some noise in the Western Conference playoffs, but we're never going to see that happening. Maybe they make it out of the play-in tournament, but even if so, you're going to have to go up against the Thunder, and I don't think they're going to beat them in a 7-game playoff series. I'm intrigued about this roster going forward with Anthony Davis at full strength, with Derek Lively and Gafford in the front court, what PJ Washington can provide you on the perimeter. It just sucks that Kyrie Irving suffered that injury. Like, if Kyrie Irving was going to get hurt, I was just hoping it would be an injury that he could now be fully healthy for the 2026 season, but no, we may not even see him at all next year, and he's getting up there in age. He's going to be 33 next year, and he's also due to make a new contract this offseason as well, so I'm not really sure what financial flexibility the Mavericks are going to have. They hit a home run on the Najee Marshall signing. Max Christie looks like a solid young piece, but could you have gone Austin Reeves instead in that trade? Why did you trade away Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin? Yeah, this team is at a crossroads this offseason. I wonder if they just run this team back and hope at full strength they can make some noise, or do they pivot and trade for Kevin Durant? Or do they double pivot and trade Anthony Davis? I have no idea what Nico Harrison's going to do anymore. So coming in at number 17, a frustrating team to watch offensively all year long. They've been one of the worst offensive teams, but a top 3 defensive team, the Orlando Magic. And it's because of injuries this year, as Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero have all played under 100 minutes together this season. Anthony Black really didn't take a step forward. And I do think this team is going to have a very positive outlook in 2026. They can maybe reshuffle a little bit of their bench in the offseason. Paolo has been incredible since really fully recovering from that abdominal injury. I love Franz as a number 2. And like I said, you get Suggs healthy. Hopefully Mo Wagner is healthy next year, and you could take some steps forward with maybe Anthony Black or Tristan Da Silva, or your 2 first-round picks in this draft. I think this team could easily be a top 6 team in the East yet again in 2026. Like they were in 2020. Coming in at number 16, I just mentioned how for the Portland Trailblazers, I was really high on them in 2026. I'm really high on the Atlanta Hawks next year. Now, this isn't the season that they wanted or maybe had hoped, but it could have gone a lot worse. After Jalen Johnson went down with an injury, you don't own your first round pick from the DeJounte Murray trade. You could have finished with a far worse record, especially after trading away DeAndre Hunter at the deadline, but this team's offense is still carried by the engine of Trae Young on that end of the floor. But next year, you're going to have Trae Young and Dyson Daniels, who broke out this year, may win Most Improved or Defensive Player of the Year. You're going to have another year of those guys in your backcourt. Year 2, Zachary Ricochet, with the steps he took this year, a fully healthy Jalen Johnson. You're off the Clint Capella money. You got Larry Nance hopefully coming back, Onyeka Okongwu, Mohamed Gay, Vic Krejci, George Niang, Karis LeVert, that's solid depth right there. You got 2 first-round picks. You're under the first apron. I like this front office and what they're doing right now with Landry Fields and Kyle Korver. I think they probably could have traded DeAndre Hunter in the offseason, gotten a little bit better value, but I do think this team is going to be a much better team in 2026. If they could stay healthy. I got another disappointing team coming in here at 15. They had to trade away De'Aaron Fox and change away their franchise outlook at the deadline in an unexpected fashion. Yeah, I do have the Sacramento Kings, who just never could really win a ton of games in the row in the second half of the year. Now, I know that Domantas Sabonis was banged up, but yeah, I would say this team was a little bit disappointing. Now, they did have a really nice win against Cleveland as of late, and maybe they end up beating Dallas and can beat another team in the 7-8 matchup and make the playoffs this year. But their pick is top 12 protected. So even if they don't make the playoffs, there's a really good chance that pick ends up at 13 or 14, which is kind of a shame. They're running out the DeRozan-Levine experience yet again, and we saw it not really work out over the last 2 years in Chicago. Their bench isn't great. Keegan Murray didn't really take steps forward this year. I do wonder where this franchise is headed this offseason. I could see them making a massive move as well. Coming in at number 14, I do have another Eastern Conference team here. They're currently the 5th seed in the East at the moment I'm recording this. I have the Milwaukee Bucks, who are led by one of the best players in the NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's putting up MVP numbers yet again, and I want Giannis to get his respect. I just don't love the roster around Giannis because I do think it could be way too inconsistent at times. Bobby Portis had to deal with that suspension in the second half. Damian Lillard is currently dealing with a blood clot in his leg as well. Who knows his status for round 1 of the playoffs? They're still around 12th in offensive rating, 12th in defensive rating this year, but I hated the Kyle Kuzma trade when it happened. I don't think it's aged particularly well. I feel like Kevin Porter Jr. has made more of an impact for this team, and I just don't know how much of the Brook Lopez at 36, Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and Kyle Kuzma complementary core around Giannis can really do in the playoffs, because if Giannis does not have a good game, which I would say the odds of that happening are low, this team is screwed. Coming in at number 13, I do have the Memphis Grizzlies, a team I've been all over the place with this year, and then they surprised everybody and they fired Taylor Jenkins after having a 44-29 record this year. They're a team that's right around top 10 defensive rating, right around top 5 offensive rating, but I can't really trust what they've been doing this year, as unfortunately Jalen Wells had a really scary injury against the Hornets. He's most likely going to miss the playoffs. Brandon Clark went down, and then I feel like their rotations went all out of sorts, and this team is going to be relying on Ja Morant, who's played under 50 games so far this year, was really inconsistent at the start of the year, but has looked better since they fired Taylor Jenkins. Jaren Jackson Jr. may make an All-NBA team. Desmond Baines looks solid. Same with Santi Aldama and Luke Kennard, but they had to give away a first-round pick to get off the Marcus Smart contract. They basically gave away Jake Oravia for nothing. I don't really feel comfortable about this team in the playing tournament or as an 8 or 7 seed this year, so they do need to rattle off a couple games if they want a more favorable playoff series, but I do think if they make the playoffs, they are a first-round exit. Coming in at number 13, I do have the Detroit Pistons. So we talked about the Pelicans and the Sixers and the Suns being some of the more disappointing teams and having a major win drop-off from what their preseason expectations were. The Detroit Pistons are the opposite of that. They're going to finish the season above 500. They're going to be a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're going to be a top 10 defense this year. I loved watching Pistons basketball in 2025. Cade taking that step, and they've been doing all this with Jaden Ivey, who's playing so well, missing most of the season. Malik Beasley has been a fantastic pickup. Asar Thompson has really made his presence felt on both ends of the floor, and that's also indirectly helped out Jalen Duren with his defensive play as well. I don't know how I feel about Detroit in a 7-game playoff series. I think it's sometimes you got to factor in experience versus hunger, right? Like the Pistons are fresh, they're young, and they want to win, and that could be a deciding factor in a 7-game series. I would still think that if they're not playing Milwaukee, which the odds of that happening are very low, they're going to be a first-round exit. But I guess I can't say I wouldn't be shocked if they ended up upsetting the Pacers or Knicks in round 1. Coming in at number 11, just missing out on the top 10, an absolute wild card for these playoffs. I got the LA Clippers. So the Clippers have been a top 5 defensive team all throughout this year with or without Kawhi Leonard. They've struggled a little bit offensively, but it's looked a lot better with Kawhi Leonard being fully healthy again. We're kind of seeing shades of old prime Kawhi. Harden's been able to carry this team offensively at times this year. If Norman Powell could be healthy, he could be a great secondary scorer. Ivica Zubac, in my opinion, should end up on an all-defensive first team. He's been one of the best rim protectors this year. And then you got Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr., 2 incredible defenders as well. Ben Simmons has given them some productive minutes this year. I think they could be a very scrappy, slow the game down, and really let your top offensive weapons, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, cook in the playoffs. They just need a favorable matchup. And if they end up in the play-in tournament and they get OKC, while I do think they could provide a very challenging matchup for OKC, I just can't see them getting past them in round 1. So they're another team that needs to hold their ground and stay in the top 6 in the West. But I just also can't trust Kawhi Leonard with his health in a playoff series. And can you blame me? He hasn't really been consistently healthy since the bubble come the most important time of the year. But coming in at number 10, a team that I think could pull off an upset in round number 2 if it were to happen in the East, I do have the Indiana Pacers, who have been a top 10 offensive team all year long, and they're pretty much an above average defensive team. Now, they don't have a ton of big man depth at the moment. Jarris Walker hasn't really taken a step forward, but Tyrese Haliburton, while he has struggled a little bit as of late, has looked like the old Tyrese Haliburton at the start of the 2024 season. This true offensive engine that can be the catalyst of a really good playoff offensive team. Andrew Nembhard, one of the best and more underrated players in the league. I wonder how Mathurin is going to really perform in the playoffs. You know that Pascal Siakam is going to be a safe 18 to 22 points per night guy. And I do think their fast tempo and their defensive ability with Siakam, Nembhard, and Miles Turner could make them be an upset team in round number 2 if they get a favorable matchup between Cleveland or Boston. I think they could beat Cleveland in round 2 if they were to match up. Coming in at number 9, a team that just had a brutal choke job against the Milwaukee Bucks. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves, who've been a top 5 defensive team for most of the year, a top 10 offensive team. Anthony Edwards has been one of the best offensive players in the NBA, but I just feel like they are not tapping into their potential. I think they have the talent, the coach, the lineups to really go all the way and make a run yet again in the playoffs, but they just keep blowing leads after leads. Because this team at full strength has a good rim protector in Rudy Gobert. They have a really good 3-and-D wing in Jaden McDaniels and what you can get out of Naz Reid, DiVincenzo, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker as complementary pieces to Anthony Edwards. I just wish they had a more safe and consistent and more efficient second option to Ant than Julius Randle, because Julius Randle hasn't had the best playoff numbers in his career. If you remember him with the Knicks against Cleveland or Miami, it wasn't pretty. Or even if you want to go back to 2021 against the Hawks, he has yet to have a good playoff series in his career, at least for the New York Knicks. We'll see if that's going to be different for Minnesota, but if they're in the play-in tournament, it's also going to be tough for them to make a run, because you definitely want to get that 7 seed to go up against Houston or whoever gets that 2 seed in round number 1. You don't want that 8 seed. You definitely do not want that 8 seed. Although Minnesota and OKC in round 1 as a 1-8 matchup would be kind of electric. But coming in at number 8, I do have the New York Knicks. Yeah, I know the Knicks are 0-9 at the moment I'm recording this. They could finish the season 0-10 against the top 3 teams in the league in Boston, Cleveland, or OKC. Now, if the Knicks played the Pacers in a 7-game playoff series, I would take the Knicks. I do think the Knicks would beat the Bucks or the Pistons in round number 1, but I think they have a very close to 0% chance at beating the Celtics or Cavs in round number 2. I think the Pacers would not beat the Knicks, but if they somehow beat a different team, I think they would have a better chance of pulling off an upset, if that makes sense. The Knicks have been an elite offensive team this year, and they've turned into almost a top 10 team defensively, but they are so reliant on their top 5. And I feel like at times against really good teams, they struggle to close out games, but they're fully healthy right now. I do think they can at least make it a competitive 6-game loss against Boston, which is most likely their path to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But you're telling me you got to beat Milwaukee or Detroit in round 1, Boston in round 2, Cleveland round 3, and then somehow get through OKC. Yeah, I don't think the Knicks are winning it all this year. I mean, at number 7, what a second half turnaround for the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, a team that has turned their season around. They acquired Jimmy Butler, and they have been one of the best teams in the NBA since they acquired Jimmy. And it's because of Steph Curry turning the clocks back and looking like 2016 Steph Curry again. He was somebody that was averaging around 22 points before the All-Star break, and now he's up to almost 25 points per game on the year, because post All-Star break, he's averaging 27 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists on 66% true shooting. Draymond is most likely going to end up on a defensive team this year, or maybe even win Defensive Player of the Year, and Jimmy has been a great number 2 to Steph Curry. Pods is playing better. Quinn Post is giving you good minutes. You got Kuminga back fully healthy. They have the championship experience on this roster. The Warriors could definitely win it all in 2025, which is so relieving to them probably, because we thought it could be a disaster at some points this year. But coming in at number 6, I've docked them a little bit. The vibes are off. I got the Denver Nuggets, who have choked some games as of late, and then they fired Mike Malone, their head coach. One of the more surprising coach firings, like blows away what happened with Taylor Jenkins a few weeks ago. They fired their GM Calvin Booth, as Jokic is putting up MVP numbers, most likely isn't going to win that award. And yeah, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Murray are getting their numbers this year. It just doesn't feel like this team is exceeding as much as they should, because they've been a bottom 10 defensive team. And how are you going to trust Russ in a 7-game playoff series? Christian Brown's been great. Schroeder's giving you productive minutes, but the non-Jokic minutes too are pretty brutal, with Zeke Naji playing the 5 or DeAndre Jordan playing the 5. I wonder if that gets switched in the playoffs with a new head coach. But they do have the best player in the world, so I'm going to give them their respect. They may end up as a 5, 6, 7 seed. What if they end up as a play-in tournament team? But coming in at number 5, my 3rd-ranked Western Conference team, I want to give them their respect, the Houston Rockets, because I talked about how much the Pistons could benefit of being young, fresh, and having that hunger in the playoffs. That's basically the Houston Rockets right now, with the Men Thompson, Şengün, Jalen Green, all being healthy for the most part this year and playing some of the best basketballs of their very young careers. This team is super athletic. It's a great defensive team. Ime Udoka has done a great job changing that identity over the last 2 years. And if we can get March Jalen Green in the playoffs for the first time of his career playing playoff games, this could be a very scary team, and I would not be shocked at all since they're going to most likely end up as a 2 seed if they're going to end up in the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder. But the one team that may end up as the 3 seed that is just hard to bet against them, and they would get the Rockets in round 2. They have the experience. Their defense is going to be a little bit shaky, but man, they got the offensive engines of Reeves, LeBron, and Luka. I got the Lakers. The Lakers are a really tough team to evaluate right now just because they've had such a small sample size with Luka. It's been around 25 games, and I feel like Luka hasn't really been as efficient as he's been in his career. But for the Lakers, he's still averaging 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 42% from the field, which is tough on that volume that Luka provides, but 36% from 3, 81% from the free throw line on around 9 attempts a night. LeBron is still giving you amazing minutes at 40 years old, which is mind-blowing, and Austin Reeves has been the massive X factor for the Lakers' success and title hopes. He's been averaging over 25 points over his last 25 games, and he's averaging 20 points, 6 assists, 4.5 rebounds on the year. Like I said, a massive X factor. The Lakers may give up 125 points a night in the playoffs, but they may score 135 points a night. Coming in at number 3, I do have the Cleveland Cavaliers. This was very tough to figure out the top 3 on who I think could win it all this year. But yeah, I have Cleveland, who's been the best offensive team in the league for most of the year, just missing out on the top 2. But I do think it's a clear tier jump. This is the tier 1 of teams we have in the top 3, and the Cleveland Cavs may win 65 games this year. They have 4 top 50 guys in the league this season with Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen all taking their steps and getting their touches. DeAndre Hunter looks like one of the best trade deadline acquisitions from February. They're getting good bench minutes from Dean Wade, obviously Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, and Isaac Okoro, as well as Max Strus. I just wonder how Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are going to look together in a playoff series, because it wasn't pretty against the Knicks 2 years ago. It really wasn't pretty against Boston or Orlando last year, and they had some injuries there, which allowed Mobley to kind of be fully efficient there at the 5 spot. I think it's going to be fine in round 1 because they're going to get a team that I have in the teens as the 8 seed, and that's the benefit of getting the 1 seed here. But how are they going to look against Indiana, who can go 5 out, or maybe Milwaukee, who goes 5 out, or Boston or New York? That could provide some of a mismatch for Cleveland, and I don't think I would have them favorited in a Boston Cavs ECF, but maybe to a shocker. I think this may be a shocker. Coming in at number 2, I have the OKC Thunder. Yes. It's going to come down to one thing that I want to know what you guys value more. Do you value the hunger, the freshness, just that will to try to get your first ring? Or do you value the experience already being there? Or do you think that can make you a little bit more complacent? Because I think that's my debate between the Celtics and Cavs and the Celtics and Thunder. Now, the Thunder have pretty much been the best team in the NBA all year long. They're going to win over 65 games. They're the top defensive team. They're top 3 offensive team. They're going to have the MVP. They're going to have multiple guys on an all-defensive team this year. And they maybe have the best front court in basketball with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. But how is Jalen Williams going to look in a playoff series? That is going to be a massive X factor for them this year, and I think it's going to be fine. I think the Thunder are going to make it to the NBA Finals, but I would not take them over the Boston Celtics, who I do have as my number 1 team. I think it's just watching the Celtics, just with Kristaps Porzingis healthy, I don't think anybody's going to be able to stop this team on the offensive end of the floor. They've been the number 2 offensive team this year and a fringe top 5 defensive team. What Peyton Pritchard can provide you off the bench, Luke Cornett as like a rim protector, low-key isn't terrible coming off the bench, but if Kristaps can stay healthy and can be that unicorn that can knock down 40-foot threes, and you have Derek White and Drew Holiday playing better basketball as of late, I think it's going to be tough to stop the Boston Celtics. Now, it is very tough to go back-to-back. I think the spread or whatever the line would be against Boston and OKC in the finals would be incredibly close. And I do think Boston would have to go through a gruesome 7-game series to get there against Cleveland. But for this final ranking, I'm valuing the experience and the top 8 of Boston over the hunger and freshness of OKC and Cleveland and their top 8 as well. But that top 3 is incredibly tough. And let me know what you would make your top 3 teams for your final ranking down below. And that is going to be for me. Hope you guys did enjoy. I did a couple rankings throughout this year, so I do hope you guys enjoyed those videos. And it's cool to react to maybe the top 30 going into the year. I'm going to be reacting to my season predictions very soon on this channel. So make sure you are subscribed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.